Oh, wow, that is looking really cool. Honestly, I feel like I overdid it a little bit, probably. Hi guys, my name is Baradante, and welcome to The Door. So, this door right here that I quickly prepared last night is this nice and low poly model. I think it's pretty much game ready. Maybe I would turn certain tinier geometry here into a normal map. This is a nice door, and this is something I mentioned before when I was describing my story that I wrote for the horror game I'm working on, where there was a scene where John is encountering the main boss of the level or of this world that he is in right now. So if you guys remember, the main boss is this forever long giant arm that crawls out of the ground. And just to quickly refresh, the encounter went this way. As John goes deeper into the field, this is new actually, I relocated the thing to the field. He notices a weird sound, like something's moving in the mud. He walks towards the sound, trying to find the source. Finally, he finds a door standing vertically in the middle of a bald spot of the field. A round spot of dirt in front of the door is blocking the way. It's constantly being pushed around in a circle by something in the soil. A pale fleshy tip is visible sometimes. And so as John approaches this place, suddenly that tip turns out to be the index finger of this giant arm that gets out of the ground. But today's focus will be on the door. And this is just the base of like the classical, I don't know, what is it called, colonial style door. And it will be standing like this in the middle of nowhere, like nothing else connected to it. But what I want to add is like a symbol right here. And that symbol may turn into like a secondary symbol of the game or something like that. It will be pretty much kind of like a black sun, where we would have like repeating patterns. As you guys remember, I always say that all the important elements, like supernatural elements of the game, need to have some kind of feature that is about the infinity. And I'll tell you guys what the logo is about, but the plan for this video is that I'm gonna put on MetaQuest 3 that I have right here, a VR headset, and I'll be sculpting this special logo in a VR app that has been a long supporter of this channel, Shapelab. And Shapelab is the sponsor of this video, and they have some interesting new update, a little yet very empowering feature that enables certain ways of creating precise geometry, which I'll show you guys in a moment. Specifically, it will be very useful for this logo because the design will be pretty much like a black, the pitch black hole in the center that will be like completely no reflections or anything on it. And around it, there will be certain repeating patterns like this. I will need to look into what exactly they need to look like. Kind of looks like a bunch of sperm trying to enter the egg as I think about it, which is actually kind of cool. But generally, yeah, this will be the look. The only thing is, at least closer to the central area right here, it will have much more precise, like very repeating shape that will look like this kind of, like this infinite copy kind of thing. So that will be this touch of infinity of the symbol. As I always mention, all the supernatural, special, and terrible things in the game, they need to have this touch of infinity, which means some kind of elements that repeat forever, something that implies that there was like some kind of infinite nature to this object or character, whatever would be a monster or not only monsters. So this will be a really cool thing. Plus, apparently black holes are a big part of the style of the game. I think I need to really emphasize it more. And yeah, after that, it will be like growing more into something interesting all over the door. We'll see how exactly it will go. Maybe something going on around the handle, it may look really cool. So that's the basic thing I'm planning to do. We'll see if it's necessary to, create a physical hole right here. I may do it just later if it's necessary to, really go deep deeper than whatever the door does, because really we can just go on top and then just make a little concave shape that touches the surface exactly and just paint that black color on it. It will be very convincing as an actual hole. After all, it's just a symbol. We're not trying to pretend there's a forever hole or something, but we can always add that in the future. So yeah, that's the goal. It's just a symbol. It's not like it's blocking the handle or something. What's blocking the door is a giant pile of mud right here that has a huge forever long arm growing out of it, but the door just has this symbol right here. So yeah, let's go ahead and start doing this. I'll go ahead and just export all of these objects I have right here into Shapelab. So all of this, I suppose, right? Yep. As usual, I do GLB format, my favorite one. Oh no, I forgot to turn on proper settings for my filling light. That's better. Yeah, so I'm still loving the idea of using the cap under the standard head strap. And also, I bought the only accessory I found that I actually find very useful is the silicone wrapper for the basic face interface. So now I can sanitize this easily and have less pimples on my face. Okay, here we are, starting the thing. By the way, if you guys are interested, you can find the link to Shapelab in the video description, of course. Also, let's give you guys this better looking preview, like this. And let's find that model. Alright, here we go. So, the main and exciting feature I wanted to show you guys, aside from other cool things that have been updated here, is that Shapelab now has really cool instruments to manipulate origins of all the meshes. So, right now, of course, I can go ahead and just grab an object and rotate it freely as if I just grabbed it with my hand. But what if I want to do something more precise, if I want to rotate it? And as I showed you guys before, Shapelab introduced these cool gizmos that lets you manipulate an object precisely in certain angles, as well as you can use snapping to, for instance, 5 degrees, and then you can do something a lot more precise. But what if you wanted to rotate not over that point where the origin is right now, but actually on the other side? There was no way to do it, and right now Shapelab introduced these special buttons right here that are also duplicated right here with quick access. So you can either manipulate origin and geometry, which is exactly what we're doing. As I'm moving this object, I'm moving the mesh and its origin point. Or we can move origin only, which is a similar mode to what Blender has, which is really cool to have this, to be able to manipulate things. But also Shapelab has this geometry only mode, which is really cool. You can adjust the position of the geometry without moving the actual origin around, which is actually probably the most useful thing in this case, because clearly I positioned the origin of this handle just the right way so it would rotate where I need it to rotate. But what if I want it to be slightly aligned differently, you know? So we made those adjustments, and now we have the new position of the handle, yet it will still rotate nicely around exactly the center of rotation of the whole mechanism. So that's really cool, combined with all the precise settings. It's useful for rotation and scaling, specifically these two things, because movement, it doesn't affect where the origin is if you want to just move the object around. But if you want to rotate around specific points, that's where you really need to position the origin. And another cool thing is that you can duplicate an object as you're rotating it exactly as you need it. And you can easily follow the same steps of rotation down to 5-degree precision, which is really cool. And you guys can see how we're easily approaching something that will be very useful in my design work for the logo. So that's the whole thing. This is really cool to have it. Last time I was trying the precise controls that Shapelab introduced, I was lacking this feature a little bit, and I was hacking my way around it when I was creating that altar thing that would be next to the gate puzzle. And now everything is much snappier and much easier to use, which is awesome. And yeah, combined with all these precise settings and snappings and everything, all of this becomes a very precise nice tool for making a lot of things happen. Another new feature is this new tab right here, Align Origin. And we can align origin to geometry, and we can either use bounding box, which means we would just look at where the starting point of the object is and where the ending point of the object is, and we just put the origin exactly in the middle. So if I apply, it will snap right here in this center place. But volume looks at like where the more of the volume, or like center of mass almost. So if you have like a very tiny spiky detail here that is long but very thin, but then a much more massive detail on the right side, then the origin would snap like more to the right side, looking for that balance of mass or balance of volume. So there would be the equal amount of volume on all the sides from the origin, which is an interesting option it introduced. You see, we went a bit higher because of course at the bottom of the bounding box there's just a little tip of this handle, and most of the handle is at the top. So now we have like a bit of a more useful location for this origin to rotate around it. It makes more sense than if we would be rotating around like an empty space there. So yeah, pretty cool feature here. Another feature is like all of it is the same, but we can snap geometry to origin again. As I said, this is also very useful if you already have the origin exactly where you want it to be. So then when I apply, this happens or this happens, and now we have this weird handle that rotates exactly around its center, but it's still going to be rotating exactly around the mechanism of the handle because I have the origin positioned in there. And yeah, also these cool commands that are very useful in Blender, and they're of course going to be very useful in here. We can just reset, let's say, only location, and that means the origin will be exactly in the center of the world, while the handle is untouched and stays right here. And same thing goes for scaling or rotation, so you can just apply all the transformations of the object, which is definitely great for working later in like Blender or Unreal Engine or wherever you would be working with it, because you should always have scale applied on the object. If you have it already and you are done modeling it, it definitely should have scale applied. I don't think it would do a lot of a difference in Shapelab itself, unless maybe it would affect a little bit the way remeshing works with objects, meaning if it would apply proper settings so you don't have to account to the fact that you like scaled down this object a lot, for instance. So if there is a connection like that, it will also set it straight and make it work more predictable. But yeah, these are the main cool new features I wanted to tell you guys about. There are more like small fun updates, like a little bit of a more animated and floating interface like this. But let's go ahead and start working on our shape. So I'm gonna just put this donut right here. Maybe it's a bit of a bigger radius donut hole than I was planning originally, but I think it looks more important this way. And now let's go ahead and apply that rotation. Nice. Oh, it's actually so cool that I can now apply X and Y symmetry, or Z as well if it makes sense, to the object in a much better way and like almost use it as radial symmetry this way, because I get to transform and orient the origin exactly the way I need it to be. And yeah, there are also some updates in the way the symmetry is showing up. But yeah, there's no actual radial symmetry right now that would let you, for instance, choose that around the Z-axis. In this case, it would have like as many copies of these brushes as you want, and they would actually not move this way, but they would all move clockwise, for instance. So that's like that other type of symmetry that would also be useful right now, but I think we can handle things without it as well, since we only need the precise geometry just around the sun, and the rest will be a more natural kind of like growing thing. So I'm just thinning it down a little bit like this. I don't need it to be mathematically perfect. It needs to be just an actual circle that is just symmetrical all over the place. And this is just about right. I just need it to be a bit thinner like this. I will mostly be using it as a guide. I don't think I need an actual donut in here. Now I made a little pancake around my donut. Don't judge. I've been fasting for 6 days now. All the metaphors I have are food-based. So I guess I'll just add a sphere, I can just duplicate this object, the donut, and I will just scale down the donut so it wouldn't interact with much, and then I guess I'll apply that scale. So now I have this new object that's pretty much just almost empty, and it has the origin around the center of things. And I can add like a little sphere here, and this will be one of those wings of it. And now I just need to go ahead and just design it, because it will be repeating the same shape on all the other ones many times around the sun. And I think I want to take advantage of a bit of a stronger curve, so it would be like very noticeable how it's all repeating identically. So I think I need to go a bit thinner than that, because I want to try copying it while rotating 5 degrees at a time. That would make like 9 of them within just a 45 degrees angle, and that means 72 of them all over the sun. It would be very detailed and cool looking, if it works anyway. Man, I like it so much to use the move tool, the grab brush or whatever, at like lower strength settings, like 1/3 for instance. That way you move the hand a lot and it moves the object a little bit. That's like the key to get like very precise, dialed in shape of the object, because really the move tool is like probably the most universally frequently used brush on the object. Maybe it's sharing the first place with the smooth brush. Alright, now let's zoom in a lot and really go very precise on this thing. So I'm quickly smoothing with a smaller brush here to get much higher resolution all over this thing. You can see right here what we're doing. And now we can do some stuff. Also, I'll be using snap to surface mode to get this ability to just stick exactly the center of the sphere of my brush to the surface. This way I get to make much more like even and predictable lines that will give a perfectly smooth line with a brush. That's really cool. Nice and organic. So I don't think I'm done. It's best to really finish the design of this one tentacle as much as possible before I duplicate, but I just want to have a look, so I'll use rotation with those precise angles of 5 degrees, and I'm using the clone object mode. Oh, that's very tight. It's like 4 times, so that's 20 degrees per one thing, the way it actually works out here. Oh wow, that's turning out pretty awesome. Now what I can of course also do is I can merge two objects together, or like half of like all of them right now, and make one extra move with cloning with rotation and get the whole circle done. Of course, like, you can make it a lot faster, but it's just that I don't want to ruin the very first one, because I'll need to continue working on it. I don't want to merge it with the rest. But we can speed it up 2 times by cloning 2 of these tentacles at a time. I think it will fit just right. Yeah, we needed exactly 2 at the end. Oh, wow, that is looking really, really cool. Now imagine having like more very precise like little ridges on these objects or something like that, so they would have their own little repeating details in them, maybe something a bit sharper. How awesome is that? Like, this is so dope. And yeah, then I just grab each and one of them and make them grow naturally, individually. Super awesome. I really like this design. Repetition really makes for a cool style in this universe. But I mean, yeah, being able not to just clone, but create an instance would be so cool. You know, I would be able to copy all of them and then just work on one of them and see the changes applied to all the tentacles at the same time, in real time. Like, how awesome would that be? I'm not actually sure that it's possible in Blender, because Blender has instances, but I don't think it can update the modifiers inside of them. And if you work with like multi-resolution, for instance, that won't apply to the instances. I mean, of course, you can work without multi-resolution. I am working without multi-resolution right now in here. Alright, I think this is a plenty of detail for a symbol that has so many repetitions. So let's go ahead and clone this around and then work on the development of these tentacles all over the door. Perfect. Oh my god, it's beautiful. I almost want to keep it this way. That's why I'm gonna save a copy of it. So now I can work with all of them at the same time, but if I don't want to do it, I should check connected. And then I'm working with a single thing at a time, and I'm having a duplicate in there. Gotcha! Duplicate tentacles. Now I can just eat you away like this. Nice. So cool, I can really precisely put these things in the geometry of the door. So I guess it's a good strategy to first, like, pay attention to the overall composition and then go in more precisely with a grab brush to make sure the tentacle is following the surface of the door well. Okay, I almost feel like I want to keep the rest of the tentacles untouched, because they don't really have a lot of room to go there at the top. And I want to make sure I don't overdo the door, so it would still look mostly like a door. But yeah, I feel like maybe some of these, especially the ones that are in the corner, they could have some more. So let's do a little bit more. Alright, I think I'm done here. Looks really dope. A lot of material work is needed for this to be really like the best thing it can be. And like this little pancake object I had before, this one, it will be like carrying the black material on it to show up as like a hole with maybe some gradient on the edges. And generally the tips of these guys may be actually of like a flesh color, the way I did with other special things where it has like this inflammation in a certain place like this. You gotta be tasteful. Or maybe strong like this. So yeah, maybe this kind of look, and you can see that where it's red, it's like more glossy a little bit. And yeah, probably the sun itself will be dark like this. And I made it like a little bit metallic, like 50% metallic, to make it like an unearthly, unusual material. And also emphasize the geometric detail. And yeah, back to that redness. I'll lower the roughness a lot more. Will this be too dark? No, it's just about right. I don't care, actually. Let's make it a bit brighter, maybe brighter than the metal part. Yeah, maybe something like this. But I'll do a lot more magic with like UV unwrapping all these tentacles into like straight lines, so I would be able to maybe apply some repeating patterns to them, as well as just more precise and careful materials there, as well as on all of these guys as well. I could grab all of these polygons around the center and unwrap them into the same place, maybe to get like more repeating perfect detail on all of them. So yeah, there's plenty of possibilities. I really like how it turned out to be. I think this will be really dope to have a door like this in the middle of nowhere. That looks quite messed up, actually. This kind of hurt already, actually, this time around on the face. But yeah, this is it. Let me know what you guys think, and don't forget to check out Shapelab through the link in the video description. And I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye! Will be cool to add like careful dirty textures on the door and everything, and like dust collected in all the cavities and everything. That'll be pretty awesome. But right now, real quick, I can do something like this. Nice. Surprise extra process. So while editing the video, I decided there was definitely something missing. I didn't go as crazy as a VR sculpting app would actually allow me to go. Like, there's so many crazy things I could do with pushing some extra detailed tentacles back and forth in one brushstroke the way a VR controller would let you do. And I thought, why am I not using it? The whole thing looks kind of a bit too simple. So I went back, and honestly, I feel like I overdid it a little bit probably, but this is one of those situations where it's best to overdo instead of underdo, because really it feels a lot more like something crazily special and otherworldly. So yeah, this is this final result that you saw on the thumbnail of the video, and it was a lot of fun. It was such a fun experiment seeing how I actually created a pattern that affected two copies of itself backwards and two copies of itself forward. So when I was adjusting things to make sure they actually fit each other nicely and don't just collide in the wrong way, I had to actually work with at least 5 copies of this new detailed pattern, making sure that no other tentacles would accidentally overlap the copy I'm working on. So yeah, the end result turned out to be really awesome. I think it's really hard to see where things actually start and end repeating, like what is the separate individual piece now. Things look very crazy. At a certain point, I had to correct my design a little bit to make sure it doesn't look like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire logo or something like that. But yeah, I think it's pretty awesome, and it kind of shows how crazy you can go with VR sculpting, especially with all these new features that let you go a lot more precise. Anyway, this is finally it. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time.